What's going on, everyone? Figure way past time for a Duramax update here. Do apologize for the delay, but like I've said a couple times on other videos, working man salary. I don't have all the money in the world to throw parts into the truck every single week, so it's one of those as I go. Anyways, today is the 3rd of October 2018, and I just had quite a bit of work. Matter of fact, one of the last major quote hurdles that I'm going to do with this truck before I'm done. Like I said in the previous video, if you got a good running truck and it ain't broken, don't fuck with it until it is. Pardon my French. But there's a lot of people that will add parts and parts and parts and parts and parts, and when you turn up the heat and you turn up the power, you're going to shorten life. That's just the way it is. If you want to play, you're going to pay. But anyways, what I did is fixed some of what I consider some of the LLY Duramax that was available in the 2004.5 to 2005 model year General Motors trucks, Chevrolet trucks, some vans, etc. Before they made the modifications to the LBZ motor. But they made some major changes as well. Biggest problem with these engines, if you do your research, is the LLY code Duramax engine was the first year that General Motors put extra hardware onto the engine in order to comply with the first set of emissions standards that were coming out for medium-duty diesel engines. Ford, General Motors, Chevrolet, Dodge, they all had to do something. So what's different on this particular engine, the intake's different. This vehicle from the factory was equipped with a EGR, or exhaust gas cooler, for those who are new to the lingo. And of course they had to have a different up pipe to the turbocharger on the passenger side in order to accommodate the riser to provide the gas for the EGR system. And then inherent in all of these trucks, the extremely piss poor design when it comes to those up pipes, the downpipe, which I'll show you here in a minute. Okay, now, like I mentioned, the inherent flaw with these engines is the cooling stack on these engines, which consists of your AC, your power steering, the radiator itself, the intercooler. They're the same on these vehicles as they are on the 2001 through 2004.5 LB7 Duramax engine, and therein lies the problem. The EGR system, the exhaust gas, you got 600-700, sometimes higher temperature exhaust gas that comes up out of the exhaust on the passenger side, comes out of the manifold as it's going to the turbocharger. A portion of that cobweb is routed through a riser that then goes through the EGR cooler, where that gas is cooled by engine coolant before, or somewhat before that is routed through the EGR valve, and then depending on parameters in the ECM, some of that is then directed. There's where the two inlets would have been. This is the intake horn that goes down into the Y bridge, which then feeds into the intake manifold. The problem with that is that exhaust gas system puts a extreme heat load on your coolant. So regardless of what the book says, regardless of what coolant you have in your truck, it is a very, very good idea every 40,000 miles or so, or 3 years, whichever comes first, flush your coolant. I can't stress that enough, particularly on the Fords, but I'm not a Ford guy, so I don't have to worry about it. But when the problem that these particular engines shared with the 6-liter is when you have that much heat, you're going to boil coolant out of the system. I don't care how new your coolant cap is. I don't care how much you pay attention to it. That heat will boil coolant out of the system. Since that is also the highest point in your coolant system, if that EGR cooler has a air pocket in there, there's now an area where the EGR cooler cannot cool the gas because there's not enough coolant in there, which leads to the EGR cooler cracking and failing internally. And in extreme cases, coolant can then bleed into the exhaust system when you shut the truck off. Coolant can then drain down into the passenger side. You hydrolock the engine and you got kibbles and bits, and then the scrap man gets it. The other problem is those risers are a weak point. Now, what I opted to do, I have learned over the years that, you know, nugget of wisdom, if you can do a job right, if you can do it all at once and do it the right way, and you can afford to do it, because I know there's circumstances where sometimes, you know, the cost is prohibitive, which is why, you know, me personally, I had to save for, you know, about a year to be able to do this job. Do it. Do it right the first time, dust your hands of it, and be done. Now, what I did is, instead of going the El Cheapo route and leaving that stock up pipe here on the passenger side, I know you can't see it, I'm going to show you here in the back. I'm going to walk to the back of the truck where I got all my kibbles and bits. Okay, this is the part that is on the truck stock. Okay, it actually sits, get my bearings here. So if this is the back of the motor, it sits like this. That bigger part there on the left goes into the turbo. That's the riser. It comes off the manifold right there. You get the picture. Okay, now as you can see, there's all these pinch points and stuff in here, and it's welded together with, looks like, you know, 7 or 8 different pieces of metal. I mean, it's actually in pretty good shape, you know, because I maintain my truck and I don't beat on it. It's a road queen. I don't tow with it. I don't race it. But as you see, as the gases are going this way, some of it goes that way. Okay, this is an Egr cooler on a Duramax, and actually I think it's this, goes this way. But anyways, coolant goes in one end and goes out that end. As it goes through there, if I can get it to focus, the exhaust goes through there, and in between those holes there is where that passage is filled with coolant. Now, similar to, you know, a water boiler, you know, air in this is bad. That's really bad, because if this is only half full of coolant and the other half is full of air, well, it doesn't matter, because, you know, 800-900 plus degree exhaust gas is going through here, especially in a towing situation. You know, you're working this truck. You know, you've got 1,000 degrees worth of exhaust gas going through here, exposed to this metal, and you've got, you know, 300 degree metal and 800-900 degree metal. You know, you're going to have differences of where the metal flexes and contracts. Eventually, you're going to lead to a failure, which is going to start pouring coolant into your exhaust, or, you know, blowing through your exhaust. And, you know, I've actually seen, you know, trucks going down the road smoking like hell because they're blowing coolant out the tailpipe, and that's your failure. Okay, so what I did, and what a lot of people decide to do, and again, if you can't afford to do this job, because it's expensive, I'll show you my bill. This is an expensive job to do. And I did have somebody do it just because I've never done this before, and I'd rather pay somebody who does know what they're doing than, you know, ramshackle it together. I mean, this would have taken me well over a weekend to do, because I've never done this before, running back and forth to YouTube to figure it out, and hopefully I got the tools and dealing with rusty exhaust bolts. And anyways, my money was worth less to me than my time. But what a lot of people will do is they'll get the Sinister Kit, and that's the kit I put into my vehicle, for the coolant, for the plugs in my my intake horn there, as well as replacing where the coolant line would have gone from here to here. Just a longer piece of, you know 5/8 heater core line. I think theirs is blue, because, you know, blue is their thing, to replace where this and this would have been, so it just goes right through the heater core. But what people will do is they'll put the Sinister block-off plate. Matter of fact, I got it. It's still right here. They'll put this guy right like, yeah, okay? Well, good in theory, bad in practice. And the reason for that is this piece here is now unsupported. Now, I have seen kits where they have this, and it's, you know, it's they got a support, you know, where this guy used to bolt in. So, but if this is unsupported, this guy here is rattling around and it's still dealing with pressure. Inevitably, what happens is this boot here blows out. You got an exhaust leak, so you're losing boost, and you got to get back into your truck again and do this all over. So what I did is I actually purchased from DuramaxTuner.com. I'll throw a link in their description. I ordered their up pipes, both sides. You know, if I'm going to do one, I may as well do the other. Again, the only difference was labor here, and it's one of those where if you can do it once. You know, so I don't have to get back in there, because, like I said, this is a pretty involved job. Now, the driver's side is not as bad, but again, it's put together with several pieces of metal. This is factory. This is exactly how it came out of the truck. I mean, it's got a thing there. You know, it's not an even diameter all the way up. You know, it's got this bellows here, which, again, you know, if those bellows fail, you got a boost leak. And if you do have one of those, like my buddy had, get that addressed right away, because now you have 1,000-degree exhaust gas blowing past this bellows onto the insulation of your firewall, which can set your truck on fire. And if that happens, the insurance company will total your vehicle. Learned that the hard way, unfortunately. Okay, so here's your Egr cooler. Now, if you look down in here, and again, I'm gentle on my truck. I change my oil, you know, but you see that nasty, crusty stuff? Okay, me personally, I made the decision that I no longer wanted my truck breathing hot exhaust gas. You know, the government says it's, you know, good for the environment. Well, I say that having that shit out of my truck is better for my truck's longevity in the long term. And since nobody from the government's going to show up and buy me a new truck when, you know, this leads to mechanical failures, I did what's best for me. You do what's best for you. However, disclaimer here, it's not legal. Necessarily out myself here, but it says right on the box, you know, when, let me see if I can actually still see a little remainder of it here. Ah, shit, it was on this side here. But it says right on there, if you open it up and you install it on your truck, it's not for street use, or, you know, it's off-road only, because in states where, you know, you have to have an inspection, this is not in your vehicle anymore, it'll fail. You know, which is why putting this guy in here is a good alternative. And, you know, hang on to it, because again, if you do live in a state, it's better to always have the parts. Whatever, you do what you want. Your truck, you do what you want. This is what I did with my truck, okay? The other thing I did is replace this stock downpipe, okay? Look at this freaking thing. Look at this. Does that look like something that allows easy flow? I don't think so, because your exhaust comes out of your turbo here. If I get the light to focus, I apologize, sun setting. It's got to make a sharp 90-degree turn down with that radius. You know, and air behaves in a manner very similar to water. You know, there's going to be an area of turbulence right here at this bottom here. There's going to be a difference in pressure, you know, so the engine has to work harder to push the air out, go down this, you know, pancaked line before it links up to your exhaust. And even if you throw a 4 or 5 inch system in there, and then you got this freaking dent in here where your automatic transmission dipstick line runs, okay? So what I got in there now is the Diamond Dye 4-inch downpipe, links up to my 5-inch system that I already have had on the truck, okay? And of course, you know, miscellaneous heat shields that no longer fit, they're no longer needed. Yeah, truck doesn't, I mean, it sounds a little louder, but I mean, I already had a 5-inch exhaust system on it, you know, with, you know, no cat and a 5-inch muffler. I mean, I could roll a grapefruit through my exhaust. I mean, how much louder would that make it? But it does spool up a little better. It does have a little a deeper tone to it. But I didn't do it for that. You know, if you're asking yourself, if you're going to do this job to make your truck sound loud, don't do it. Matter of fact, 85% of people that just want to drive a truck never need to do this. But see, I'm the kind of person, I bought this truck when it was new, and I'm going to drive it until it falls apart around me, so I want to do everything possible so I could get 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles out of it. And in case you're wondering, I got about 97 on it. But I have replaced this damn Egr cooler at least once. I've replaced this valve assembly 2 or 3 times, and I'm getting tired of it. And I no longer want hot, sooty exhaust gas going into my engine. You know, because I want to preserve it and maintain it. Well, the other thing I did, you know, around 100,000 miles, it was due for a new SERP belt, you know, so I did that. And if you're going to do that job, again, do it right the first time. You know, new belt, if you're going to pull the belt off, you may as well replace both the idler pulleys and the tensioner, which I left in the garage, but you get the idea. You know, if you're going to do a job, do it once, bite that bullet, dust your hands of it, and be done. You know, that's really, at the end of the day, that's really all you got to do. Now, this blue line, that's that heater core line I was telling you about that did fit on the Egr cooler. But I mean, other than that blue line, if you didn't know exactly what you were looking for under the hood of this truck, I mean, it still looks like factory. You know, if you got that Sinister thing on there, you know, and you live in a state where they got to do an inspection, that is a enormous neon flag that something's been done, something's missing. You know, and of course I got my S&B on there and a host of other things. But, you know, I wanted to post an update, you know, because I haven't posted any updates for a while. And now The only other thing I'm probably going to do to this truck is I got EFI Live coming for it. It's going to be real mild. I basically am going to have, you know, what they call an economy tow, you know, which will lead to, hold on a second, let me unlock old girl here for a sec. It'll lead to, you know, about 40 more horsepower than stock, but I don't want to blow up my stock internals. You know, that's what I told the guy on the phone. Is I'm not looking for, you know, 150 horsepower. I want a little bit more economy. I want it to run more efficient. And I gave the guy a list of what I've had done to it. You know, stock top end, stock bottom end. I don't have studs in it. I don't plan on doing studs unless I blow a head gasket, God forbid. That's where I'm going to leave it. Okay, so I really wish I could have had videos or pictures of doing this project. There are those people that have already done that on YouTube. The guy that I had do this work, he's a great mechanic. He's been the only other person except me that's ever been under the hood of this vehicle. His name's John. I won't drop his last name out of privacy. But he's a cranky old bear. I mean, he's a great mechanic, but he's not good with people, and he really didn't want somebody standing over his shoulder, so unfortunately I've got no pictures of the install. But let me go ahead and break this down to you, okay? The parts that are on this are the belt, the tensioner, and the 2 idler pulleys. Like I said, if you're going to do one, you may as well do it all. Okay? And it's about actually, it's an hour and 3/10 labor. So you're, depending on your shop, if most shops are around $120, $130 an hour, you're looking at about 150 plus parts. So you're looking at around $300 to change out the belt. And at 100,000 miles, you know, I replaced with OE equipment, you know, not Napa garbage, no problem, no disrespect to Napa. But if I got, you know, 100,000 miles, and what is this? It's an 05, so that'd make it 13-ish years. If I got that kind of out of OEM equipment, that's what I'm going back to. You do what you want, though. Again, this is not a cheap job to do. I mean, I know I've got, you know, a handful of parts over here, you know, but when you consider everything I had them do, you know, remove the passenger side up pipe and replace, remove the driver side up pipe, remove the Egr Cooler, remove the Egr valve, do the downpipe, the belt, the tensioner, the idler pull. You know, it's not a cheap job, but it's all labor, okay? First, you got to buy your parts. I've got probably about $750 in parts. And then, you know, not counting this, so let's call it $850. Okay, it's rounded up, call it $850 in parts. Okay, then you got the labor, and of course you got to pay the tax man. You got to pay the governor for his mansion. $1,228.99 is what it cost in labor and minus $190 in parts. So let's call it $1,100. $1,100 in John's time to do this. Now, John did this in a day. He jumped on this truck at 7 o'clock in the morning when I got to work, and it was sitting there waiting for me at 6 o'clock when I got off work. But he was on this all day. Of course, he's got to take his lunch, but it takes a day. For a competent mechanic to do this, plan on this taking a day. But it's done. It's done. It's over. I can dust my hands of it. I'll never have to worry about an EGR failure. I'll never have to worry about hot exhaust getting into my engine. I just got it back, so I mean, it sounds good. It runs great. You know, sounds a little louder. I mean, but I didn't do this for noise. I did this for, you know, longevity and efficiency. And if I notice a big difference in fuel economy, I'll certainly post it in the comments section. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, if I didn't cover anything, you know, because I know this is about a 19-minute video, but you know, there's a lot I'm trying to cram into 19 minutes. So if you got any other specific questions, please throw them in the comment section below. I do read them and I respond to them. Like and subscribe. Like I said, the whole reason I did this is because I want to get 400,000 plus miles out of this truck. You know, now I get to start saving for, you know, transmission stuff, which is a whole other ball of wax. But the Achilles heels are now out of this truck. I am now confident that there is nothing in this that can fail that will cost me the motor. Now, disclaimer time, the companies I mentioned, you know, their materials, their rights, all that's reserved to them, and yada yada for the lawyers out there. And I am not sponsored in any way, shape, manner, or form by any of the products that I have talked about or have mentioned. I'm not sponsored by Sinister. I'm not sponsored by Duramax tuners. I mean, they're out of Illinois. They got great products. You know, they work well for me. Maybe their products will work well for you. But I paid for it. Trust me, I could show you the receipts. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you got any questions, throw them below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.